Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dr. Music Podcast. I have a very special guest and a very special Christmas edition again for you. I have Mr. Peter Orullian joining me today. Peter is an author, a lyricist, a producer, a vocalist. The list goes on and on and on. He is a creative of all sorts. He has published a wealth of novels and short stories, creating his own fictional world with the Unremembered in his Vault of Heaven series. He has also worked with John Petrucci and Jordan Rudess of Dream Theater to publish novelizations of some of their most iconic work. For the Christmas season, Peter has created a vehicle for his holiday musical vision called Symphony North, and it's incredible stuff. The Bell Ringer is the name of the record, and it's a timeless adventure of faith, joy, and music. And Peter, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, that's quite the introduction. I hope I live up to that.
Oh man, that's half of it. You do so much, and it's fascinating what you do, and it all seems to be centered around your love of music, which is really it's what we're all about here. Obviously, what I'm all about in my life.
Yeah.
Everything seems to, my universe revolves around music. So you get that, I think. But I want to, kind of want to start at the beginning for Symphony North, because I think it's really fascinating and somewhat ironic how you got this thing going. It was a chance meeting with Trans-Siberian Orchestra creator Paul O'Neill, wasn't it?
That was the final catalyst. Yeah, the slightly longer story is it's sort of this double-edged sword that I've known since I was in grade school, that I had three real passions. And one was telling stories. I used to just tell impromptu stories to my sister every night when we would go to bed. Another was music, of course. I was, singing at family things and church things all through my youth. And Christmas. And for me, Christmas, it's everything from the tinsel to the reverential. I really adore it all quite authentically. For me, it's not like a money grab because you can sell stuff at Christmas. And I woke up as a senior in high school with the notion that I should try and conflate these three things into something, and that could, really be joyful for me as a career and as a life. But like most of us, you get pulled away. I went to college. I moved away to go to work. I had a family, all of those things, and all good things. But it meant that my creative endeavors got marginalized a little bit. I published some novels. I got to tour with some bands. Always celebrating Christmas, but this vision didn't crystallize. Then in the 2012, something like that, I was at Microsoft at the time, working in the entertainment division, and I was doing the music marketing. And I got to meet Chip Davis. He's the founder and composer for Mannheim Steamroller.
Yeah.
And they started with the Fresh Air series of albums, which I love. They kind of invented the new age genre.
Yeah.
But Chip, I told him kind of this vision I had, and I was at one of his Christmas concerts. And it's funny because he was at the time he had this shoulder problem, and he was getting massaged in the before the show to loosen up because he's a drummer.
Right.
And he said, "Yeah," he goes, "Peter, you need to chase that." So he gave me some encouragement, but then I went back to work and kind of didn't move. And then to bring us back to where you led me to launch from, I was at a TSO concert in Seattle where I live now. Just I think the year or two before Paul O'Neill passed. And Paul didn't tour with them anymore. He kind of stayed in studio in Florida and composed, and he was the brain trust always behind that whole thing. And I met him. I went up to him because I had a backstage pass, and I said, "Hey, your music means a lot to me." And I just gave him a taste of this thing that I'd always wanted to do for 30 years at that point or something. And he pulled me into his private green room and spent about 45 minutes with me. And I said, maybe I don't need to do it anymore. Like there's Mannheim, there's you guys. And he looked me in the eye and he said, Peter, if you don't chase that dream, I'll be disappointed in you because the world needs more Christmas music and more Christmas stories.
Wow.
And he just really encouraged me. So it was pretty shortly thereafter that I finally just had to set other things aside and focus on this. And I came up with Symphony North. I leveraged my sort of franchise development skills and all the writing skills from the novels I'd published, created the spine of the story for the first record. And once I had that in place, I started to write the music. And that's how Symphony North and The Bell Ringer were born.
Man, it's just it's so cool, and I say it's an ironic twist because we're talking about Paul O'Neill who developed trans-siberian. They're kind of that realm that you live in. They invented that. They're the pioneers of that. And of course, Mannheim, with a little lighter, not as much of a rock, more orchestral thing. But those are the bookends of this realm we call Christmas rock. So it's such a great story. It's such a wonderful thing to hear that Paul took that much time with you, encouraged you to come into his world, and and basically, in a marketing standpoint, it's a competition. And he welcomed that, which is really, really, really great, because now we have Symphony North,
Yeah.
and much because of that meeting, maybe. And
Well,
that's
Paul was he was such a generous heart. He was always giving to people. He understood something that's really interesting in the creative sort of realm, not just music, but in fiction and other areas. And that is, you usually find that real professionals understand the principle that when you get new blood and new artists in a category, it doesn't create cannibalization of what you do. It actually grows the pie.
Mhm.
And so usually like young artists, they feel competitive, like they gotta outdo the other, or they can't share, and they're always backbiting and this sort of thing. And it's not just small-minded, but it's actually antithetical to how you actually grow your own audience. Because
Yeah.
if a new artist comes into your category and creates new listeners, because no two bands they're the same, like no two writers are the same. What happens is you have more absolute number of listeners to the category, and so it
Yep.
grows. And true professionals, when they kind of get to that altitude, they understand this, and Paul understood that.
Yeah.
Um, and he was also just this kind heart. TSO's never going to sell one less ticket because of Symphony North. you
Well,
know,
yeah, yeah, but and that's a perfect example. It's that show related artists thing where you're listening to something and then it gives you related artists or it plays something after it that's close.
exactly.
Yeah, they get a listener. It doesn't mean you stop listening to what you liked previously, or if you're introduced by a newer artist, say Symphony North, you'll find TSO through that, like you say, that grows that whole. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, to recognize that was very, very special, very beautiful thing. Did you have any fear or reservation? Because yeah, I mean the comparisons to TSO have to be abundant, and there are people that are unaccepting of, hey, this sounds like whatever, and we
Yeah.
already have that, and that negativity of that kind of thing. Any fears when you first jumped in there? Any fears or reservations jumping into that Christmas rock world?
No, there really wasn't. The one, I mean, it's been my passion for most of my life.
Yeah.
Two, I don't think any two artists, even when they attempt to be the same, come out the same because it's always filtered through your experience and your
Mhm.
creative, energy and all of that sort of thing. And thirdly, the way we kind of started thinking about it with my management team and those sorts of things is there's that old aphorism about standing on the shoulders of giants, and you kind of have artists, a lot of artists every year, even rock artists like Rob Halford has released Christmas records.
Mhm.
Usually what they are though is they're like their versions of classic Christmas carols, and they're cool. And so if you love those artists, it's cool to get those and listen to them. But it's rarely original music. It's usually the
Right.
standards that are sort of cast. But with Mannheim, they're one of the first ones that like really turned that crank more. They added drums, they added bass, they had harpsichord and some other instruments that are lesser used, but they gave it this sort of more modernity to the sound. So I think they are the first real instance of modern Christmas music. And
Mhm.
then a decade later, TSO comes along. They gave it more of an edge, right? A little bit more
Right.
rock vision. Of course, their stage shows got pyro and lasers, and they kind of create a spectacle. And then there's a little bit of narrative flavoring, which is cool, but it's a little bit more like reminiscences, like the person walking down the street or sitting around, and they think about something, and it recalls a story, and so then you get the song. What I've done and how I think Symphony North is unique is I'm using traditional rock instrumentation, but I've also used a lot more symphonic instrumentation, which is why I call it Symphony North. A
Mhm.
lot more horns and woodwinds, a lot more strings to kind of create a unique sound. And I think like the thing about it is all of the Christmas shows are great. You should go see them all, as far as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
But if you ask me like what's unique about us, I would say the instrumentation is unique because we layer on things that aren't used in other sort of Christmas rock groups, and the narrative element because I studied and taught narrative and fiction and storytelling for a long time, and our show Curtain to Curtain is a story where we don't break the fourth wall. Not until the show's done do we come out and like talk to the audience and stuff. So you really are immersed in the journey of Jack Morgan, who's the character, and his process of change and understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed that right away. The Bell Ringer is a journey. It's a story. It's a novel. Really. I mean, it's something you can really follow. Uh, and that's the great concept album, is where the story takes prevalence, really, where you are following a character. So it's almost like a score, uh, which is
Yeah.
really it's pretty unique for sure.
That was my goal, honestly, was to have this journey and tell this original Christmas story, but to do it in a thrilling, anthemic way, and present it, as a concert that you could go to enjoy as a rock concert, but has this extra element so that when you're walking out at the end, you've been thrilled, but you've also been moved.
Hmm.
That was really the goal. And go back to your original question. Obviously there's going to be fans of Mannheim and TSO and other Christmas acts who are sort of like they just want to like the thing that they like, and that's okay. I understand it, but the analogy I would use there is I'm a big fan of progressive rock and metal, and I remember when Queensryche came out. No, sorry, not Queensryche, Dream Theater, because I'm a big Dream Theater fan, and their vocalist has got this like bright, clear, like operatic, deep vibrato, amazing voice,
Hmm.
and it made and people are like, oh well, he's copycatting Jeff Tate from Queensryche, and then I thought, well, but you know what? When Jeff came out, they said he's copying Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden,
Right,
and
right.
so there's always these knee jerk comparisons. But I think what happens is that 99% of the people, they just want good music, and so once they actually start listening to it, they understand, oh well, this is different.
Yeah, yeah, and three guys right there, heroes for me.
Oh, you and I are brothers under the skin then.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I had the pleasure of having James on the show, and
Oh, that's
he's
great.
just a great human being too, and that's always great. When your heroes don't disappoint, and Jeff too. Just an amazing, really great guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was yeah those. That's the world I grew up in, and I love Christmas music, and I surround myself with all kinds of music. So To hear all of these elements come in, and we get that from Symphony North. The hard rock and the jazz kind of and the classical elements of it. I love all of that stuff. So it's all in one great big package themed around Christmas. Really cool. I talked with John Blasucci yesterday from Luminar Christmas. He was with Mannheim as well, writing Christmas music, different than Symphony North. Um, but he writes originals, does traditionals in his thing, but writes originals. And I asked him about writing in the Christmas theme, how that, how does that differ from writing a song other than just a regular song, not in a Christmas theme. So I'm thinking major keys and bells and chimes and lighter keyboard, higher keyboard pitches and things like that. All of those elements are in that Christmas sound, quote unquote. Um, do you find that there's a formula that you have personally to capture Christmas in music? I would imagine that's tricky, to have a song not be cheesy with it, maybe, and just Christmas it all over. Have Christmas just vomit on this thing. That's maybe a little too much. But you pull back and it turns into just a regular track, and maybe loses that Christmas feel. Is that a tricky thing, or is it possibly easier because you have parameters to write within? Is there a formula for you, or how do you capture that?
Yeah, I don't think, not, for me, there's not a formula. I think of Christmas music, other than the standards which you hear and you just love. Like, I grew up on the Lennon Sisters and Bing Crosby and Nat King Cole, and I
Mhm.
adore all of that music still. But
Yeah.
there's Christmas music, which I would say 99.9% of it is what I call meta Christmas music. So they invoke Christmas images and sort of Christmas cliches and stuff, in order to sort of hit that nerve immediately. So they'll talk about, it's like talking about Christmas, and those are great. But that, for me, that's different than what I think Christmas is about. And I find this holds true for people who are spiritual and religious, as well as those who don't have any faithful convictions but still celebrate the season. Is that there's this human value or virtue that I think is common to most humans, that the person who is in need, there's, at Christmas time, for whatever reason, there's this, we're gentler towards them, more patient, more giving. And that sense, those gestures of humanity that are more prevalent at Christmas, is what Christmas is about. Whether you're invoking, the story of Christ, or you're just talking about a bell ringer on the corner who's trying to collect your pennies so someone else can eat tonight. And that feeling is what I've known since I was just a kid, like, that I loved about Christmas. I wish it was year long. It's not, unfortunately. It can be. We can carry that in our heart, like Scrooge
Yeah.
says he's going to do. But most of people don't. So Christmas rolls around, and people are just a little bit more kind and patient. And so there's a small percentage of Christmas music actually speaks to that. And so this is what, from going back to your question,
Yeah.
yes, there's places I use bells and things like that in my music. But what's way more important to me is writing the song and the orchestration and the lyrics that communicate this underlying principle or idea of Christmas. And in fact, we had one review. It was from a Christian outlet, who said that in the, something, I'm paraphrasing, but in the raft of Christmas music that's been released in recent years, this album, which doesn't sort of declare any sort of religious or church affiliation, out Christians most Christian Christmas music. And
Yeah.
it was because the story of the bell ringer is this guy who's behaving in a way where he's helping people. He's using his own tragedy and imperfections in order to help. I call it the hands that hang down. The person who's disadvantaged or disenfranchised or depressed or poor, whatever it is. And the bell ringer meets a lot of these different people, and so and he has his own sense of so, sort of lacking self worth, and so he arrives at he's trying to come home, and so he arrives at this sense of home by having it redefined to him through how he's reaching out to the poor, the needy, the depressed, all of these things. So, like, I know that again, this is a long answer, but to me, when I'm writing my music, that's why I start with the story, because once I know the story that I'm trying to tell, then I write the music to communicate the story, and the story at its heart is a Christmas story because I think that's what Christmas is about. And
Hmm.
so then whatever bells or non-bells, or sometimes it's just acoustic guitar or just a violin, works correctly and sort of suits the song because it's helping me tell that story.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it really works. It really works well. And like I say, it's for concepts and music, they don't always meet eye to eye. Like you were saying, is the music doesn't always translate to what the what's being said.
Right.
Uh, and but this does. You get that feeling. The music suits the feeling, the emotions of what's going on in the story, and it's really great.
And I
You,
want to say, I didn't write this as any sort of doctrinaire thing. I'm not angling for anything for people in terms of what they think or believe. But I do have this notion, and maybe I'm wrong, but I have this notion that when you get down past a lot of the things that we get concerned with in our lives, underneath it all, there's something about the human, experience that's common to us. And so we all, at one point or another, we're poor or we're sick or we lose someone we love. And those things bind us because they're shared experiences. And so the same thing with joy. And so when those things we understand because they're shared experiences. And so that's what I let lead me in my music composition. And so our fans, once they love, like you have been describing, with one of the things they love about the Bell Ringer album is it has this story quality to it. And so it's different than listening to something that's just talking about sleigh bells or
right.
Christmas trees,
Right.
cool as those are. And so this is another way in which I think we distinguish ourselves, And so I think you should go to all the Christmas concerts, but also come to ours.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You can't get enough Christmas, right?
No, you can't.
Uh, but the thing is that this character in the Bell Ringer too is very complicated because he is somebody who is in need, but he's also somebody who's giving to people in need. So instead of just trying to receive, which he needs, he's giving, which is his way of receiving. So it's
Yeah.
very complicated in the way that the character acts, and the spirit of the character, which is, like I say, that is Christmas. The best way to receive this feeling of Christmas is to give. Uh,
You nailed it. And that's actually the final song on the record is called Gift of Self. And it's that idea that the best gift you give is the gift of yourself. Like I've talked to endless people and at some point things don't matter anymore. What you really want from others is you want their time. You want the relationship, the concern when you need it. And so your willingness to give those things is the feeling inside Christmas that I think makes it special. And that's irrespective of everything else. And so for Jack, trying to come home. He lost his parents when he was 6, so he's orphaned. He spent time in a boys' home. Then he was homeless. He was a street kid for a while. Went to war, came home from war, did have some happiness. He got married, but then his wife passed of cancer, and he had to give his son away because he knew he couldn't provide for his kid because he was struggling with the war. So he's had this very tortured life. And then he got on a bus and he's been working itinerant jobs around the country for 30 years, and the story opens, he's trying to come home. Story set in the Bronx,
Right.
and he takes the only job he can get, ringing a bell, right? Because he does not really a skilled labor guy. And what happens is that he meets these people throughout the story and the record that he turns out to be the perfect person to help. He meets a young mother whose child is really sick with cancer. He meets a guy a firefighter who lost his legs in service. So all of these people, and it's this idea I have that what makes your value, like we talk about giving, what make part of, it's like your weaknesses are actually your strengths. That the things that Jack is able to do, how he's able to help these people, is because he's been there. And so it's not, in spite of these problems that he's had, that he's helpful. It's precisely because of them. And I love that idea, because we all have all of this tragedy and these wounds from our past. And the idea that makes us perfectly qualified to help somebody. I mean, that kind of stuff moves, like right now, it chokes me up a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to write about. And so by Jack doing that, what happens is that after the end of the story, he's still homeless, doesn't have anybody. He's standing there. And what happens is at that last song, Gift of Self, he slowly starts to hear people coming towards him at midnight on Christmas through the snow. And it's all of these people he's been helping. They've come back to make sure he's got a place to stay and someone to be with on Christmas. And it's because he's spent his time and energy helping them when they needed it. And to me, that moves me. Those are the only kind of music I'm interested in making anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, see, and it moves me. Seriously, and I love hearing you talk about your character. You created this, and it is fictional, but is non-fictional to you, for sure. This is it doesn't feel fictional. It's a very real thing, and the whole vision is just a beautiful thing. And I want to get into that. You had a large vision in mind when you did this, an album, a touring production, a novel, a feature film, and some other things, even a game based around this. So, how far along are you in fulfilling that vision?
So the obviously the record's out. We have staged the show. Obviously, we're in the process of trying to grow that, right? Make it into a bigger touring production and a longer touring cycle. It's challenging with Christmas projects because you really get this small window every year.
Yeah.
But we have staged the show. We hope to be able to do a long run next year. I just finished the novel, the fully fledged novel, which is like 100,000 words, and sent it to my agent. He sent that out to publishers literally last Thursday. And so we hope that the book will be out in bookstores next holiday. I have one offer, film rights offer. I don't know if it's the right director. So my agent and I are thinking about whether that's the right place. But I think that, in the world of, I don't know about you, but I own like almost every Christmas movie ever made. I buy
Right.
the Blu-rays, and I watch them all every year.
Yeah.
And I think that The Bell Ringer is a sort of a story that hasn't been told. And so I think we're going to find a partner who's going to see that and want to make this into a film. We have one offer, like I said, may not be the right fit. So we're making progress on that, and if it all doesn't come to pass, that's okay. The centerpiece, though, like you said at the very beginning, for me is the music. Well, it starts with the story, but the first thing that was complete was the album. And so you can get the album now either. By the way, if you buy the CD on our website, there's 2 bonus tracks that aren't available on Spotify. But if you just want to sample it, it's on all of the streaming sites. So, it's
Yeah.
easy to get. And we did during COVID, because we couldn't be out there doing shows, we did a version of it where we had all the narration. And so you can sit down on YouTube and for almost 2 hours, you can watch the whole journey of Jack with the songs as well as the narrated parts of the story.
Yeah, I did that yesterday or the day before, 4 hours.
Oh,
Uh,
nice, nice. Thank you.
well, you have it with the narration and the performers, the artists, and then you have an actual animation uh, film of it with the music, and it's just gorgeous. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
that we found that animator in the Ukraine. This was before all of the
yeah.
disruption there, but yeah, he did a great job. Did motion graphics with those all the illustrations. It came out pretty well, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it. It took my day, and I was happy it did. So yeah, it was really great. And there'll be links to that in the description here, so people
Oh,
can
thank you.
take that journey. It's really, please do, because you'll get the spirit of the bell ringer, along with the music, and it's a great journey. I have to ask you about working with Dream Theater. Especially the novelizations, because that's a unique thing. Metropolis was huge for me. As all Dream Theater fans, it's the cornerstone, kind of, the Scenes from a Memory album. And you did the Astonishing as well. Made these into novelizations, which, we love that. Uh, the music's done when you're doing this, right? So this has to be a unique experience, even for yourself as an accomplished writer. You have music that you're writing to. How was that? Wow, was it the collaboration? Were you free to write what you wanted to write, and or was that overseen? I know John wrote the Astonishing with you, Petrucci. Um, how much freedom did you have to do that? Was it difficult? What was the experience like?
Yeah, with the astonishing was first, and John really had the astonishing vision, what the story was, and so he had written sort of summaries for every song on that album, which I think has some 30 something tracks. It's a double album,
Mhm.
and so he had a lot of like ideas about it, and so when we started to think about the collaboration, he and I did multiple long Zoom sessions like this where we brainstormed because obviously with a novel, there's so much more room to develop the characters and the world and the magic systems and all of that stuff. And so we did a ton of ideation on that one together. And then I did have a lot of creative license. John trusted me. I had written one as kind of an audition because I've known John forever, and I said, pick a song and I'll write like the chapter for that song. And so he picked a song called The Savior in the Square from The Astonishing, and I wrote it and sent it to him. He loved it. And even with that, I had to extrapolate quite a bit to sort of flesh it out. And so he knew that he trusted me. We did a lot of brainstorming, but he trusted me. And then I just, had the map, I had the music, I had the lyrics, I had John's notes, I had our brainstorm sessions, and I really sort of fleshed out that whole world with Scenes from a Memory, which just came out like 2 months ago. Um, John and I did do a good brainstorm session on it, but they were in the throes of writing their new record, and so they were really time constrained. So all I really had was the lyrics on that one, and that one brainstorm session with John. He and I had actually talked about it at other times, but we had one, so maybe 3 or 4 calls, but we had one really longer brainstorm session, and then most of it I extrapolated from the lyrics, and again, John put a lot of confidence in me to be able to go out and build out these characters in this world, and I don't read my own reviews because I feel like on the one hand I don't want to get too prideful, but on the other hand, uh, I don't. People's opinions about my stories that's their opinion, and none of my business.
Yep,
So I don't read my own press, I guess is
yep,
what I'm saying.
yep.
But I have seen it in the Dream Theater forums every once in a while because I'm a big fan of Dream Theater. I'll see something pop up, and it seems like the fans have really liked how I've interpreted all of that, and that makes me happy because, like you, I'm a big fan of that record.
Yeah, Yeah, and that's it's a that's one you don't it's like rewriting the Wizard of Oz. It's like
Yeah, right.
uh it's a risky one to touch. People are really really passionate about that record. So yeah, and for John to trust you with doing something like that is right there is just huge. Yeah,
Well, and I always, after I'm done, I send the book to, the guys in the group to read. And John called me as soon as he finished reading scenes, and he was blown away. He was so happy. He was talking to me
that's
about all the different parts, and he's like, fans are going to really love this. So, yeah, I mean, the getting John's sort of stamp of approval after it was done was huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. That's great. Do you have anything coming our way away from Symphony North? I know there's a series with Brandon Sanderson next year, maybe. You're dealing with that. Anything else we can expect from you?
Yeah. So the Brandon book contract's almost done with that, and then the publisher will set the publication date. That's a new. By the way, the lead character in that is a metal singer. So it's
Of
the
course he
music.
is.
Of course, he is, and there's a magic system in that involves music. So I think people who like music and metal, even if they're not readers, will find that one pretty fun. Um, I've just started the next record and story for Symphony North. So there'll be a new Christmas album if I'm diligent by next Christmas, and then I will write that novel. I might actually write the novel first this time. Another original Christmas story.
Wow.
So I'm hoping that if I'm productive this next year, that next holiday there's a new record and a new book. Those will be those, and then working on the Sanderson books because the contract's for a trilogy. So with Brandon, so I'll be starting book two. So those are, I mean, when I'm sitting right here where I do all my creative work, I'm either writing books or I'm writing music. And this next year will be a busy one doing everything I just described.
Man, that's so cool. We love to see you at work. We love to get the product that you work on. It's special to have in our world. We appreciate you, Peter. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There'll be links and everything. Symphonynorth.com, Orullian.rocks as well. You can get more out of Peter. I so appreciate your time. I so appreciate what you do. And Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you. This has been delightful. And you're so well prepared. It's so fun to talk to people who like have done some little bit of digging on me before we chat. So
Absolutely, and
kudos to you.
thank you, and and like I say, you're a fascinating guy. You're so talented, and I love talking to a brilliant mind like yourself too. Because everything is a little bit deeper, and I'm a pretty deep guy myself. So I love when people dig into, especially like characters. Your creative thing is just. And not only the characters here in the Bell Ringer, but the Vault of Heaven series. Yeah, it's just wow, what a dive. So yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. And
Thank you.
it's something we need in our world for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, always welcome. My door's always open. And like I say, have a blessed Christmas.
You too. You too.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank you, Peter. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.